Hi, in this video we're going to look at working with vocals and writing melodies around them and the basic ideas of harmony. Quite often I hear tracks by people and they've got a really cool track, lots of great sound design and it's musically great, and then they've got some vocal a cappella or some samples from a sample pack or what have you they've put in there, and they're completely out of key and scale with the rest of the track. They just sound very detached from everything else that's going on. So we're going to look at some simple ways of how you can correct that. So I've got this vocal a cappella here which sounds like this. Okay, so first we want to work out what scale and key the vocals in and the melody. So I've got newTone loaded up, which comes with FL Studio, and what you can do is just drag and drop from your browser the WAV file into here and it'll give you the notation. And that gives us two options. We can rather go with what the vocal's already doing and work around that melody, or we can choose to write a new melody from it and move these notes around. The only thing I'd say to be wary of is as soon as you start to move these around too much, it will begin to sound sort of synthetic and artificial and have artifacts, which is a good thing or a bad thing. It's completely up to you. There's lots of tracks out there which are very auto-tuned and use vocoders and sound very artificial but also sound very cool, so it's just totally subjective of what you're going for. It really depends on how far you stray from the original notes as well. Like if you move a couple of notes up a semitone, it's not going to be too noticeable, but as soon as you start to move these up 3 or 4 or 5 or more semitones, the artifacts really become noticeable. And that's because in a sampler, if we were to move this note up, what we'd be doing is playing it faster, so we'd be shortening the sample, and if we played it lower down, we'd be lengthening the sample because it's just changing the speed of it. Whereas with something like this, it keeps all the vocals in the same timing, so what it's going to do is pitch it and then time stretch it to correct that at the same time, so you get these metallic sort of artifacts eventually, which no matter how good the algorithms are for time stretching, because some are a lot better than others, you still get some problems with it. But in this case I'm just going to go with the original vocal melody. So if we go to the save icon here, you can go save as MIDI, and then you can put it in your browser and drag it back into your DAW. And there's lots of great tools out there you can use if you're not using FL Studio, like Melodies, and a lot of other DAWs have tuning plugins or systems built in. So I've got the vocal melody playing a piano part here. So next I've used that for a bass line. So I've just loaded up a bass patch and I've tidied this up a little bit, quantized it. One of the problems I had was in the original vocal melody there's these really low notes, which are these ones here, this F and G, which meant rather these notes here sounded way too high, or these notes sounded really muffled and too low because of the octave difference. So I've just moved them around so that they're in the same octave by moving the lower notes an octave higher. So if you compare here where it goes down on these notes, this is now transposed an octave up apart from this note, and then at the end as well, just to correct that problem. So with the bass line it sounds like this. And then if we put that in with the vocal and a drum loop, we get this. So really simple, but that's something I would use as a starting point. And then you could start to move around some of the notes to make it a bit more interesting. So next we're going to look at harmony. So I've done something really simple here. I've got some vocal syllable things and taken the original vocal melody and transposed it up 5 semitones, which sounds like this. And if we play that with the vocal. So that's a really simple way we can start to create harmony. And then to make it more interesting, rather than all these being the same intervals, we could play around with moving some of these around. So some of them could be major and minor sustained intervals and things like that to create a more interesting melody to go with the vocal. So looking at harmony, it works on the same principles as chords. So here I've got a simple chord riff. And what we could do is then divide this across instruments. So if we wrote a simple chord riff first that we liked, we could then build a track around that. So these bottom notes we could say are going to be our bass line. Then these next notes here could be our vocal melody. And then these top notes here could be another vocal doing a harmony, or they could be a synth part. There isn't really any rules. And these are all interchangeable. And the bottom note here, this could be our vocal if we wanted, and the next note here could be our bass line, etc, etc. You can do it however way around you want. The only thing I would be wary of is as you start to write the track, you'll find that you're doubling up these notes that have been spread across instruments. So this note here might be playing on 3 or 4 different instruments, etc, etc. You want to double up mostly on the fundamental or root key of the chord. As you start to double up on these, if they begin to overpower the fundamental too much, it can weaken the chord. And if you're really unsure about intervals and things like that, there's a cool little icon in here. And if you open it up, you've got all your different scales here and different chords, which will give you the intervals as starting points. And that's some quick ways you can get started with working with a vocal and writing stuff around it that melodically helps it.